In the deadliest aerial assault since the beginning of the Russia-Ukraine war, Russian President Vladimir Putin unleashed a wave of 550 drones and missiles on Ukrainian territory Friday, striking the capital Kyiv just hours after a call with US President Donald Trump. According to Ukraine's Air Force, the attack involved 63 Shade 136-131 kamikaze drones, cruise missiles.
Yeah, that we could just continue on with that. All those scenes were just from this past overnight, as you heard the guy on this the video there saying, from just hours. Actually, it wasn't even hours. I don't think it was shortly after the phone call between Trump and Putin. Obviously, this stuff had been scheduled long in advance. But that just kind of shows you where this is at here. And again, Trump comes out after that phone call with Putin yesterday and says he's not very happy.
I'm speaking to President Zelensky tomorrow, early in the morning, and yeah, I'm very disappointed with the conversation I had today with President Putin, because I don't think he's there. I don't think he's there, and I'm very disappointed. Well, it's not, I'm just saying, I don't think he's looking to stop.
Well, you know, honestly, you don't have to think he's not going to stop, because President Putin very clearly said he's not going to stop. And especially if you saw our show yesterday that we did just right after the phone call happened, the readout from Moscow was pretty elaborate and detailed, very clearly said that they are not going to stop. And that is the continuation of everything that the Russian side has been saying really since the beginning of the war, and certainly since Trump has been inaugurated, that they were willing to talk, they're willing to have negotiations and discussions, but they're not going to do an unconditional ceasefire, and they're not going to end until what they claim as the core root causes of the war have been discussed. And that's just the enduring Russian position. So I think that this missile strike, and I think the timing of the phone call was probably not coincidental from the Russian side. They wanted to demonstrate that they actually mean that they are going to keep fighting. We've shown you time after time of whether it's Sergei Lavrov, Dmitry Peskov, or Putin himself. They keep saying, we'll keep fighting until we have this. Nebenzia, I remember 2 or 3 weeks ago, we showed you a clip from the United Nations Security Council where he emphatically and directly said that. And you just have to wonder, is anyone actually paying attention to what the Russian side says? Because their words and their actions are in alignment. And if you want this war to come to an end, we're going to have to recognize the realities on the ground, to include the diplomatic realities coming out of Moscow, the air war that's continuing to go on, et cetera. And you just have to wonder, you know, at some point, the weight of all of these attacks is going to have an impact on the ground as well. And by the way, this just kind of point this out here. These air attacks this one was 550 overnight. That was the largest overnight total air attacks from Russia into Ukraine since the war began, and that eclipsed the previous record, which I think was 48 hours earlier, when it was like 530 or something. That just shows you that the Russian capacity in the air continues to accelerate. And by the way, when you keep hearing this nonsense from the Ukraine side, and all those videos that Gary's continuing to show you here, especially the ones over last night, the Ukraine side came out and claimed that they had shot down virtually every one of them. And you can see on the screen, you don't have to take anyone's word for it. There's the video evidence right there. And yet the Ukraine side keeps on with this fiction. It's Orwellian to an exceptional degree. And you just have to wonder, I mean, at some point, isn't that going to backfire even on your most ardent supporters when they keep seeing you make claims that are self-evidently grossly inaccurate and untrue? I mean, why not just be honest about it? Because the fact is, you don't have enough air defense capabilities. And by the way, the vast majority of these were drones, the Shahed drones, some of the newer models here, and those are the ones that can be knocked down by the Patriot air defense system and several others, the Iris-T, et cetera, that Ukraine has. They can have some success out of it, but that shows you that they just don't have very much, which of course we all know about, because that's been Zelensky's request for probably the better part of a year or more, that he just keeps pounding the drum. He says he wants air defense systems, but as we keep also talking about, we just don't have them. Well, let's kind of consider about, what some of this stuff means here, because Trump says, you know, he doesn't think Putin's going to stop. Well, he's not going to stop. That is now ratified. It's completely clear. So the question has to be for President Trump, what are you going to do in response? What is the answer here? Because if they're not stopping and you keep on saying, you know, we're looking for a ceasefire, because that was the gist of the call yesterday. Trump was saying again that he wants Putin to have a ceasefire. He wants him to bring the war to a conclusion. Putin apparently very politely told him, I'm willing to discuss things. I'm willing to end the war. I'm not willing to have a negotiated settlement that comes after a ceasefire. He just said, I'm not going to do it. And then he hit the emphasis on the point with that big strike that happened afterwards. So then you have to ask Trump, okay, then what are you going to do now? Because if what you wanted, the ceasefire is not going to happen. If what you wanted for Russia to stop fighting, if that's not going to happen, and Putin clearly both verbally and with action told you he's not going to, then what's your position here? Now, Trump in that same interview may have given a bit of a clue of what he might be thinking when he said that basically this is Biden's war.
In one way, I had to get too involved because it's Biden's war. And I got stuck in the middle of it, just like I did with immigration and a lot of other things that they screwed up. But I was not happy with the conversation.
So you can say you're not happy with the conversation. One has to wonder, what was your expectation going in there? Who is preparing you for this? And because I haven't seen yet whether this call was initiated by the United States side or the Russian side, so I'm not clear who started it. But whoever did, one would have to wonder on the American side, who prepared him for this? If he was not happy, that means, it implies anyway, that he was surprised that the call didn't go the way he thought it was going to. And if you're told, which if he had called us or Gary, maybe Gary could have told the same thing, that said, hey, Mr. President, Russia is not going to do anything different. This is what they've been saying. They've never said anything different. This is what they're doing. They've never done anything different. So don't go in and ask him for a ceasefire because he's not going to give it. And you're going to be disappointed. I don't know if anyone, I don't have any insider access at the moment, so I don't know what was or wasn't told to the president, who set him up for the call here, but it doesn't sound like anybody did him any favors. And I don't know whether that's Trump's fault for not listening to people, or if it's some aide or something that just wants to tell Trump what he wants to hear and is telling him something that, oh yeah, you know, your force of personality can probably get him. That's possible. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people on the senior echelons of the Trump administration on the inside there that do that, because unfortunately, that's kind of what helps you succeed. That's what the president likes. And unfortunately, that's one of the downsides of having that you get advice that is not realistic and is going to set you up for failure. Right now, it's just kind of an embarrassment, but you know, we have to wonder. So Trump was talking about that he wants a ceasefire. He said, now this is also, the timing was really important here. Not just what happened after the call, but what happened before the call. So before the call, we had the United States announce that they are suspending the transfer of a number of key weapon systems and ammunition, specifically 155 millimeter artillery shells, which is vital for the Ukraine side, and air defense interceptor missiles for now obvious reasons. Now, we showed you a couple of days ago, and it bears repeating here, that Ambassador Whitaker went on Fox News to explain why we did it.
Give us your reaction to the U.S. holding back now on these weapons to Ukraine.
I think the most important thing to know is that this is what America First looks like. We first have to take care of the United States needs. And this is something the Pentagon does all the time, make sure that the United States has the strategic defense capabilities necessary to project power. And so we have to make sure that we have enough Patriot missiles, and we have enough air defense and all the things that we need to ensure our own success on the battlefield, wherever that battlefield might be. You saw our great capabilities on the B-2 bombers when they dropped the precision-guided bunker busters on Iran. And so, you know, the world wants that. We saw that with our NATO allies last week. They want to be allied with us so that we can bring those capabilities. And, you know, we just need to make sure that we have what we need at any time to deter and defend ourselves.
Okay, fair enough on the face value of it. I'm actually in agreement with most of those things. We need to make sure that we have the capacity for the United States to defend itself. If we get into a war, because we know that our industrial capacity is not enough at the moment to sustain any kind of a conflict. So that means that you need to have a really robust stockpile of the key ammunition categories that you would need to sustain a war until you can get your industrial capacity. One would hope that the analysis was done, and it appears that I think Assistant Secretary of Defense Bridge Colby is reported anyways from what's in the news, that he has done an analysis and says that we can't give any more of this stuff. So presumably, and I certainly hope this is the case, the assessment is, all right, if it would take X amount of time to get our industrial capacity up, if we get into a war of our own and it turns into a sustained issue that's not just an airstrike like what we did in Iran, but it's something that we, like Russia, Ukraine, where you get into a war, it would take X amount of months, possibly years, to get the defense industrial base up, and our daily usage in missiles would probably be expected to be X, whatever that number is, whatever their computer simulations and analysis could say. And so that stockpile needs to be Y. So it needs to be this big, whatever the number is. If we're going to sustain something over amount of time, we've got to be able to cover over this period of time in the ramp up like the Russians did, so we won't be caught short. Because if there's a delta between these two, if you get into a sustained conflict and your daily usage is whatever this Y number is, and the time for the ramp up is this period over here, and if your stockpile is such that if you use that Y, which would be a conservative number, there could be a delta in between, meaning you could run out or run into a critically low density so you can't use them anymore before you can get ramped up, and that could cause you to literally lose a war. That's the kind of analysis that our White House needs to be doing, and I hope that's exactly what's happening.